Hello and welcome to this Bizmates Tell Me About video series. And today's topic is culture shock. It's something that if you've lived overseas, you've certainly experienced. But you know, culture shock isn't something that we feel just when we go overseas. It's something that you could feel when you change companies. You work for a new company, the culture's different, you have shock. Or you move to another city, even within your own country. You know, if you go from Tokyo to Osaka, I'm sure you could feel some culture shock. And today I thought I could explain my experience, the culture shock that I felt when I came to Japan. And when I say this, you might think, Hika, you felt culture shock in Japan? Well, I did. But a lot of people are surprised because well, one, I look Japanese, right? Yeah. And I speak Japanese. Konnichiwa. You know. And I have a Japanese name. Well, Hika is kind of a unique name, but Ito is a Japanese name. And I had visited Japan many times before when I was a child, for short periods. But after I became an adult and actually moved to Japan, it was completely different from when I was a child and I just visited my grandparents for 2 weeks. It's completely different. And I did feel the same type of culture shock that a lot of other foreigners feel when they come to this country. Okay, so let me talk about that a little bit. Now, when I first came to Japan, I was in this, what a lot of people call the honeymoon period, where I just loved it. Everything was new. I went to karaoke with my new friends and we sang for hours, Beatles songs and Carpenters, and I just had a blast. People, drank a lot. They were so polite. They poured me drinks and I felt really special. And I just loved Japan. The products, the food, the transportation, the trains are always on time. Everything was just right. However, after a few weeks, and the honeymoon period kind of ended, I got into this phase, which a lot of foreigners, if not everyone, gets into. And it's that phase of culture shock, of stress and anxiety. And I felt like I just want to go home. I missed my family, I missed my friends, I missed the food back in Canada, and I had a lot of frustration. And I remember this one time, when I first came to Japan, I stayed in this gaijin house. And it's like a house with many foreigners living in it. There are like 20 people living in this one house. We shared the kitchen, we shared the living room, but we all had our own separate rooms, really small rooms. And I stayed there for the first couple of months, and it was great, it was fun. But then I moved to my own apartment. I had saved up enough money to get my own apartment. And that's when the real culture shock came. I didn't know anyone. I had to go to City Hall and register. My Japanese wasn't that good, but I looked Japanese, so there's a lot of confusion. And there's this one time, right after I moved, I went to a convenience store to get something to eat. And I bought a bento, just one of those convenience store bentos. I took it home. And I realized I didn't have any chopsticks or knives or forks or anything to eat it with. So what I had to do was I had to eat it with my hands, and it was like rice with karaage and some other food, and I was eating it with my hands, and I just felt so lonely, so depressed, so sad, and I just, right there, I cried, and I called my mom and said, "Mom, I just want to go home." And after I had finished eating, I realized the chopsticks were actually stuck to the bento. The convenience store person had put it in there. But I didn't notice it when I was eating it. And anyway, that's just some of the experiences that I had with culture shock. And after a few more months, I started to get used to the environment. And I got to this point where, I felt, well, nothing I can do. It's shoganai. And I accepted this new unfamiliar culture. I wasn't happy, but I just kind of accepted it. And I lived that life for quite a long time. For maybe a few more years like that. And then finally, I got to this stage in Japan where I was comfortable. My Japanese started to get better. I began to understand all the Japanese culture, tradition, like Japanese weddings, and you give money, and then there's the okaishi, and all these things which I didn't know before, I started to understand, accept, and feel comfortable. And the culture shock went away, but it took many years. Yeah. And now, every time I go back to Canada, I go back every year to visit my family there. And when I go to Canada, I have reverse culture shock. I go to Canada, I'm like, wow, I love it here. You know, the streets are wide, the trees are big, the air is clean. But after a few days, I get into that stage of, ooh, I want to go back to Japan. There's too many things about Canada I don't like. So I have this reverse culture shock. Yeah. So anyway, this is my experience, and I'm sure it's experience that a lot of foreigners, if not everyone, have when they come to Japan. So next time that you meet a foreigner, why don't you ask them, what was culture shock like when you came to Japan? And they'll probably give you a similar story like this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this topic, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you.